SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling it, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly you made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para ver el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The hub on the transfer and commercialization of technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resource Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand for platforms and applications that capture and disseminate real-time information. This includes the expansion of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical to the rest of Central America to help build resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. As more consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector to digitize millions of micro, small, and medium enterprises across the region.
Las buenas noticias es que sabemos por qué están fracasando, porque no son visibles. Y el hecho de que ahora lo puedan ser, haciéndolo ellas mismas, no solamente rompemos las tres barreras del tiempo, conocimiento y dinero, sino que les permitimos tener éxito y dejar de fracasar a los porcentajes que lo hacen ahora.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OAS y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno y lo dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer de las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
More than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. as we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling it, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly we made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para ver el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The hub on the transfer and commercialization of technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resource Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand for platforms and applications that capture and disseminate real-time information. This includes the expansion of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical to the rest of Central America to help build resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. As more consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector to digitize millions of micro, small, and medium enterprises across the region.
Las buenas noticias es que sabemos por qué están fracasando, porque no son visibles. Y el hecho de que ahora lo puedan ser, haciéndolo ellas mismas, no solamente rompemos las tres barreras del tiempo, conocimiento y dinero, sino que les permitimos tener éxito y dejar de fracasar a los porcentajes que lo hacen ahora.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OAS y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno, lo dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Con la ayuda financiera de la Unión Europea.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly you've made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para abrir el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The hub on the transfer and commercialization of technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resource Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand for platforms and applications that capture and disseminate real-time information. This includes the expansion of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical to the rest of Central America to help build resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. As more consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector to digitize millions of micro, small, and medium enterprises across the region.
Las buenas noticias es que sabemos por qué están fracasando, porque no son visibles. Y el hecho de que ahora lo puedan ser, haciéndolo ellas mismas, no solamente rompemos las tres barreras del tiempo, conocimiento y dinero, sino que les permitimos tener éxito y dejar de fracasar a los porcentajes que lo hacen ahora.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno, lo dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling it, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly we made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para abrir el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The hub on the transfer and commercialization of technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países. Queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resource Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand for platforms and applications that capture and disseminate real-time information. This includes the expansion of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical to the rest of Central America to help build resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. As more consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector to digitize millions of micro, small, and medium enterprises across the region.
Las buenas noticias es que sabemos por qué están fracasando, porque no son visibles. Y el hecho de que ahora lo puedan ser, haciéndolo ellas mismas, no solamente rompemos las tres barreras del tiempo, conocimiento y dinero, sino que les permitimos tener éxito y dejar de fracasar a los porcentajes que lo hacen ahora.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OEA y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno, y lo dieron todo lo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Con la ayuda financiera de la Unión Europea.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
SETI's results for 2018 proves our effectiveness as a development partner, placing people at the center of our work and leveraging partnerships and cooperation to transform policy imperatives into action. With an eye on the rapidly changing global context, SETI is innovating to constructively address the emerging challenges and opportunities for the region. As part of our competitiveness program, SETI is designing precise tools to assess assets and capabilities in the productive sector to determine paths towards higher value goods and services. As our flagship program for partnerships, the Americas Competitiveness Exchange on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, the OAS, will continue to leverage good practices and the power of networks to increase trade and investment in the region.
For us, the role of the OAS is very important, connecting countries, connecting governments and private sector, and letting us know what other countries are doing it and how we can replicate that in our countries to enhance development.
For me, who has come here to look at how can we develop our own ecosystem, our own innovation hubs, our own accelerators, I think seeing this, touching, feeling it, seeing the transformation, seeing how quickly we made it happen is a testament to what is possible. So I believe all of us leave here stronger than ever.
The Working Group of Experts on Subnational Competitiveness, the GTEX, is our gateway program to promote local economic competitiveness policies alongside municipal and state-level governments, together with the private sector and academia.
Este tipo de reuniones te sirven para darte cuenta de todo lo que se está viviendo en América Latina sobre los temas de competitividad. Y hoy justamente en este sector estamos viendo sobre todo los temas de innovación tecnológica, pues que si hablamos de competitividad tenemos que hablar de tecnología. Y me está ayudando mucho para ver el panorama de ver lo que están haciendo otras ciudades y lo que podemos llegar a aplicar también nosotros en México.
The hub on the transfer and commercialization of technology is strengthening national innovation ecosystems by training budding entrepreneurs to take promising products and services from idea to market.
Porque es importante que estemos juntos en esto, porque la región tiene que estar unida y me parece que hay mucho conocimiento en la región que todavía no está explotado comercialmente como podría ser, y esta es la mejor manera de hacerlo.
Tenemos la proyección de cada año generar y compartir nuevas experiencias entre aquellos que contribuyen a la innovación. Queremos cambiar el cómo lo hemos estado haciendo en Latinoamérica. Queremos generar la unión de los países, queremos colaborar.
Our virtual platform on technology foresight, Prospecta Americas, will support OAS member states in identifying and mapping future trends and technological development of critical importance for the Americas.
Este esfuerzo, el cual viene siendo apoyado por la Organización de los Estados Americanos, nos permitirá tener una gran información para poder mapear estas iniciativas de innovación y poder que ellas contribuyan al crecimiento económico, a la competitividad y al bienestar de nuestras naciones.
Como bien sabemos, nos encontramos ya en la cuarta revolución industrial, la que está cambiando rápidamente la forma en que se hace negocios, se produce, se consume y se genera bienestar y entretenimiento en el mundo. Es la mayor amenaza, tal vez la mejor oportunidad que tenemos en nuestras naciones.
The Inter-American Teacher Education Network, the I-10, is working to improve the quality of teachers with an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. In 2019, the I-10 launched the first STEM Teacher Fellowship of the Americas. The Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, ECPA, is working with governments in the Caribbean to advance electric mobility and clean transport as the sub-region pursues energy independence. Under our Integrated Water Resource Management Program, SETI is responding to the demand for platforms and applications that capture and disseminate real-time information. This includes the expansion of Costa Rica's Plataforma Interactiva de Aplicación del Clima Tropical to the rest of Central America to help build resilient agriculture. The Inter-American Committee on Ports is building human and institutional capacity through public-private partnerships to address port modernization, logistics, and security. CooperaNet, SETI's multi-stakeholder platform for cooperation and partnerships, is being relaunched in 2019, responding to member states' call for a more robust hub for cooperation. As more consumers begin or end their shopping process online, SETI has entered into a partnership with the private sector to digitize millions of micro, small, and medium enterprises across the region.
Las buenas noticias es que sabemos por qué están fracasando, porque no son visibles. Y el hecho de que ahora lo puedan ser, haciéndolo ellas mismas, no solamente rompemos las tres barreras del tiempo, conocimiento y dinero, sino que les permitimos tener éxito y dejar de fracasar a los porcentajes que lo hacen ahora.
Es una herramienta que sin duda acerca a las MIPYMES hacia la demanda que hoy está migrando a Internet, y con eso pretendemos mejorar las ventas y el posicionamiento de las empresas pequeñas.
As we look to the future, the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development will continue to leverage cooperation and partnerships to expand our reach, proving that together we are much more than the sum of our 34 member states.
Me and my kids have been there for over an year right now. And children are friends. It doesn't matter where they come from.
Nosotros estamos en una zona netamente selvática. La línea de adyacencia va desde el norte hasta el sur, va desde Modesto Méndez hasta Aguas Turbias, tanto en el norte como en el sur. Esta línea tiene 215 kilómetros de extensión.
De allí vino él, se buscó creo con los de la OAS y de allí vino el proyecto para acá, para Judá. Y fue que lo dieron el terreno, y lo dieron todo que era mano de obra y el material para hacer las casas que están ahorita. Y por ese motivo estamos aquí viviendo todavía.
La misión continúa trabajando en la implementación de medidas de fomento de la confianza mientras se aguarda el resultado del reclamo que está atendiendo la Corte Internacional de Justicia por la disputa marítima, territorial e insular. Nuestra oficina en la zona de adyacencia realiza verificaciones a solicitud de ambos gobiernos, facilita reuniones y patrullajes conjuntos entre las Fuerzas Armadas y promueve una cultura de paz y cooperación entre las comunidades locales.
Children will be children. And they have harmony. They don't see each other as a different country, but they see each other that they're growing together.
Hoy, esta organización
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, with your permission, we will confirm the quorum for this morning. We're finalizing the test of audio and video testing for those delegations that are joining us outside of headquarters, and those connected online, and those that are, and the delegations that are here at headquarters. We have the following delegations: Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, Belize, Bolivia, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominica, Ecuador, El Salvador, the United States, Grenada, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Jamaica, Mexico, Paraguay, Peru, the Dominican Republic, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Suriname, Uruguay, and Venezuela. We have quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ASG. Good morning, distinguished colleagues. I'm pleased to declare open this regular meeting of the Permanent Council, convened to consider the items contained in the order of business document CP Ord 239322, which I hereby submit for the consideration of this Council. There being no observations, we will proceed to adopt it without amendment. Adopted. Before addressing the items on the order of business, I would like to express our solidarity with the people and the government of Argentina in light of the assassination attempt made against the Vice President of the nation, Cristina Fernandez. We strongly condemn this attack. I offer the floor to Ambassador Raimundi.
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Firstly, I want to thank everyone for the expressions of sympathy and solidarity that has been received by my country as a result of these latest events. The surprising thing is that didn't allow us to keep it put it on the agenda, and that's why I asked to be able to speak, because we couldn't put it onto the agenda. And I would, if any states would like to express their support to not hamper the order of business for the meeting, I request that it be done at the end of the meeting under other business. So, Madam Chair, the images of a firearm or fired 20 centimeters from the former president and current vice president of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. This image traveled the entire world in the media. Fortunately, it jammed and the bullet was never fired. But to try to weigh the seriousness of such an act, I ask everyone to just imagine for a moment what our country would be like, Argentina in particularly, what it would look like in a good part of our region and overall, if that bullet had made it out of the chamber. I'm saying this because today there are milieu and sectors that want to downplay and the seriousness of what happened. They even say, people are even saying, oh, she's going to, the former president and vice president is going to take political advantage of this. That someone from one of the largest provinces said that politics in Argentina is not a matter of an agenda. And so that's why I asked him just speak shortly to bring this issue up. And the two places that they want to place this issue, the first place is to reduce it to just a single act of just one person, of an isolated individual. And the second thing they're trying to say about it is to sort of narrow the consequences and the responsibility for this act to only to the judiciary. But what's going on is that there's a process, there's a context here, there's background to all this. That which has two parts to it. One, to demonize, stigmatize an individual, a particular political group in this case. And then at the same time, make it seem natural to have images and hate speech and hate images, to make them seem normal. There are videos that are very objective that have emerged because in marches and street protests in the past, we've seen on the streets of our capitals guillotines, coffins set up, and the images of political leaders with shrouded as if for a funeral. And the idea is until this political figure is done away with, there won't be social peace. A national figure said that the judicial charges against the ex-president wasn't enough, that she deserved the death penalty, and it doesn't exist under Argentine law. There's no death penalty under Argentine law. So what's going on here is the combination of these two factors, stigmatization and public ridicule, and normalizing messages of violence and hatred, lead to a favorable atmosphere for these type of things to happen. And so I wanted to say that in the case file, that this person belonged to a criminal organization, it doesn't appear in his record, even though at the end it was proven that he belongs to a violent organization. But it wasn't allowed. This doesn't remove responsibility from the political context, and to just narrow it all down to just the judicial case, the court case. For those of us who try to forge an opinion and to engage in leadership and to be positive in our actions towards the people, to sort of wash our hands of the responsibility that we have, is what this is. We're all aware, each and every one of us are well aware, is that when there are crimes that have to do with an ethnic background, gender-based crimes themselves are preceded by verbal violence, hierarchical violence, symbolic violence. So it may be that this is an individual action, but it is not it did not take place outside of the context of an incremental hatred and violence context. We all know, Chair, that there's not a single way to ban political leadership. We know that it's no longer just military dictatorships. There's more sophisticated methods to do it, but what's going on here is one by one they're knocking down the judicial, they disprove things, but the evil act has already been carried out. And so I don't not only appeal to your understanding, but to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights as well, to not just narrow the view to the state's responsibility in the judicial investigation, but the entire context should be viewed in a climate that has been helped in retaliation and hatred and violence. It's Madam Chair, I am finishing up. I'm wrapping up now. So since it is a holiday, a national holiday, it was a national holiday, and our president said yesterday, in the midst of such a climate, on our national holiday, there is it said that she capitalized on her popularity and the headlines. It says the newspaper wasn't to inform. That's not the purpose, to report, but to generate indignation of whoever reads it, to try to discourage and outrage our people. The next day, after the failed attempt, millions and millions of people throughout the country took to the streets to call for peace. And in short, our people in Argentina have the tradition, which was repeated after several different events that took place in our history, which is to take to the streets, to occupy public spaces. There's no doubt. But sometimes the institutions aren't enough, and therefore the people take back power and go to the essence of democracy. Democracy, the government by the people, power of the people, such as the Agora in Greece, the Forum of Greece, of Rome. And so the people are trying to go back where? They're trying to get back to, with verbal escalades, with offenses, with ridicule, with lies, using it as, instead of getting back to a heated debate and a debate of ideas, but without lying but it should be in peace. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. Likewise, we extend heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims of the deadly stabbings in the Canadian province of Saskatchewan. We also extend our condolences and feelings of solidarity to the delegation of Guatemala for the fire in the Guatemalan municipality of Magdalena Milpas Altas, in which 12 members of a family perished early this Tuesday. In other matters, allow me, on behalf of the Permanent Council, to congratulate the peoples and governments of Uruguay and Trinidad and Tobago on the celebration of their national days on August 25th and 31st, respectively, as well as the people and government of Brazil, which is celebrating its National Day today, September 7th. Dear colleagues, we have a lengthy agenda today, so I respectfully request our distinguished panelists and representatives of delegations to adhere to the time limits provided in our rules of procedure. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated. The next item on the agenda is the presentation of the final report of the OAS Electoral Observation Mission deployed in Paraguay for the municipal elections held on October 10, 2021, pursuant to the request from the Secretary General in document CP-INF 9441/22. The Chief of Mission, Mr. Juan Pablo Corlasoli, who joins us in this room this morning, will present a summary of the report, which consolidates all of the observations and recommendations made by the OAS observation team. The full report has been distributed to all delegations as document CP-Doc 5802/22. Before proceeding with the presentation by the Chief of Mission, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the President of the Superior Court of Electoral Justice of Paraguay, Mr. Jaime Bestard. Mr. Bestard, welcome to the OAS Permanent Council. The Chief of Mission led the OAS Electoral Observation Mission in El Salvador for the 2018 legislative and municipal elections and the 2019 presidential elections. He also led the Electoral Observation Mission in Guatemala for the 2015 legislative and municipal elections. He has also held various positions at the United Nations. Mr. Corlasoli is a Uruguayan professor who specializes in the areas of the sociology of development, analysis of social change, and formulation of development policies. Mr. Corlasoli, the floor is yours.
Good morning to each and every one of you, Madam Ambassador Luangi Gilchrist, Chair of the Permanent Council, Mr. Raúl Mariano Martínez Villalba, Interim Representative of Paraguay, Mr. Luis Almagro, the Secretary General of the OAS, Mr. Nestor Oméndez, Assistant Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen, representatives from the member states and permanent observers to the OAS. On October 10th of 2021, Paraguay held municipal elections, which were originally scheduled to be held in 2020 and that were postponed for a year as a result of the health emergency due to the COVID-19 in the country. In these municipal elections, there was participation 831 candidates to elect 261 positions to mayors and 15,000 candidates to elect the more than 2,700 positions at municipal legislatures, etc. And this took place in the framework of important reforms with regard to elections, which changed the makeup of the list for these plurinominal positions, and also with the use of technology for casting votes, and also establishing a new framework for political financing. At the different meetings that the experts held during the pre-electoral stage, it was observed that the Superior Court, Electoral Court, generated security and trust among civil society and politicians. The Electoral Observation Mission of the OAS conducted a substantive analysis of the electoral process, focused on technical aspects related to the organization of the elections, technology, political financing, and justice, electoral justice, and the participation of women and indigenous peoples in the elections. The election day, the day of the election, there were 26 voting centers, polling stations that were visited in the capital, in Guairá, and the Central Department. And what it was observed, the elections from the opening of the polling stations till the closing, as well as the tallying of the votes. The day went by without any significant incidents, and at 17 hours, it was when the polling stations closed, as was scheduled. At around 18 hours, the Superior Court of Electoral Justice publicized the results through the website and said who had won. This took place smoothly, the election, and the mission hails the success of the results and having the returns the very night and providing the information to the public. The participation in the municipal elections was 60-some-odd% of those registered, which is an increase of more than 5 points higher in municipal elections with compared to the last year and 2010. And so I congratulate the increase of participation in the elections in view of the fact that in the context of the pandemic and in the implementation of important reforms, findings and recommendations. In the interest of time, I'm just going to mention a few of the recommendations that are included in the report that's been distributed to you, and provides in greater detail the recommendations. Electoral technology. The main innovation in this was the use of technology for casting votes. For this process, we used voting machines that had a touch screen whereby the voter could cast his or her vote. And this was electronic voting because you didn't keep information in paper form, but rather it was saved on a chip. The mission ascertained that the use of technology was adapted to the needs of the electorate, and it also streamlined tallying, and it eliminated human error in filling out the certificates. The use of electronic voting with a list of the different candidates led to the authorities to reorganizing the candidates. There was a portal on the web so that people could put in the synonym or the name, and the photograph of each candidate was posted for people to see through the portal. The mission says that this enabled a description of more than thousands of, and more than 30,000 for the municipal elections. There were, and so this was a success. However, it makes the recommendations to continue to strengthen the mechanism. The first thing is to, at the court, to have an assessment of ICT that assesses each of the risks when in using electronic voting. Two, the court should use its own technical tests to test out the equipment and chips so that the court itself can make sure that they are secure and efficient. And now, the reform established new concepts for electing internally in each party. It also introduced new regulations with regard to control of resources, and also with regard to publication of information on the portal of the Supreme Court of Electoral Justice. Thus, the impact, because of it, it was decided to cancel in 2020 the election. Even though the reforms that were introduced in the legislation and specialized agencies entail greater transparency, the mission believes that it's necessary to deal with some substantive aspects and procedural aspects that have not been covered by the law. So therefore, the EOM recommends, therefore, to introduce for municipal elections, there has to be ongoing updating with regard to financing. The financing also advance towards a report of campaign expenditures that should be done in real time, as well as to conduct an exercise of comparison between the expenditures and income of the parties. Women's political participation has been mentioned in prior missions. Paraguay is one of the countries in Latin America with the lowest level of participation of women in different bodies of political representation. The percentage is only 16 some odd percent, and women mayors is only 10.4%. So the mission says that under the new system, the legislation with regard to quotas, 20% it's supposed to have, that it's weak in and of itself and it's not effective. In order to turn around this situation of women, and with the many recommendations issued by the OAS to the country, we suggest that create mechanism to ensure parity in the candidacies. In case that the same list system remains, there should be a double vote given to women so that in each elector must choose a male candidate and a female candidate of their preference. And two, that the authorities and civil society in Paraguay should consider to using a high-level OAS group to strengthen political participation of women. In March of 2022, this high-level group seeks to foster high-level dialogue and implement recommendations to promote political participation of women and contribute to administrative reforms for this purpose.
Just like in 2018, the mission observed in these, the polling came out on the very same day, and the OAS has indicated that this is a poor practice that tries to influence voters and can create the wrong expectations. And so when you do post-polling, the mission has stated that Paraguay is the only country that keeps this tradition in play and has expressed concern because history has shown that this practice is very imprecise and has no value in terms of prediction. In future elections, the Commission has stated that a new committee should be created so that there are equal conditions and ensuring that there is no undue influence during voting. Our acknowledgements. The mission would like to thank the government of the Republic of Paraguay for allowing this electoral observation mission, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Superior Court of Electoral Justice, and experts who allowed us to collect the information necessary to discharge our work successfully. We would also like to thank the Paraguayan people for their hospitality and all of those who contributed to the success of the mission. The mission also extends its thanks to the governments of Korea, the United States, France, the Netherlands, and the Dominican Republic for the financial contributions that made this deployment possible. Thank you very much for allowing me to share this very important message.
Report as Chief of the Electoral Observation Mission in Paraguay. I now offer the floor to delegations that wish to comment on this agenda item, beginning with Paraguay. You have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Representatives, ambassadors of all of the member states of the Permanent Council, I would like to extend special greetings to the Chief of Mission, Juan Pablo Colasoli, who just delivered his report. Very briefly, I would like to refer to the very important value we place on the elections in Paraguay. This report contains some very specific details, some technical components that are of the utmost importance and that we will take into account as we seek to continue to approve and correct some of the weaknesses that have been uncovered in our election system. In the world of elections, there is not a single formula that will work in each country. Each country has its own traditions, customs, institutions. Some are older than others and they work very well. Some are newer. But what is ideal is to consolidate institutions, ensure they are strong. In Paraguay, I would like to note that our 1992 Constitution, since it was passed, we have been able to strengthen the Supreme Court of Electoral Justice. They oversee each of the different levels of elections, and the highest body is the Supreme Court of Electoral Justice. And through successive elections, we've seen that they try to ensure that the results cannot be questioned and are accepted by all aspects of the political sphere. There's often challenges, questioning, divergence in the participation. But above all that, in Paraguay, there is absolute respect for the outcomes of the elections. In Paraguay, most recently, and based on the report we just heard delivered by Juan Pablo Colasoli, is a reform of the election a system including some unblocked electoral lists. The law compelled the electoral system to employ technology. So we turned to voting machines with very specific components that are very different from electronic voting systems in other countries, for example, Brazil or Venezuela. In Paraguay, we use one that we call voting machine because it is not connected to the internet. It is not online at all. So it is nearly impossible for it to be hacked. And that is because it also does not store any information. It is simply a digital screen, high definition, touch screen, and the vote is then imprinted on the ballot and stored in a chip. And then the ballots are screened, and then the machine prints out the record. The results are then transferred online. In all cases, we are able to have a full count 3 to 4 hours after the polls close. We were a little bit wary of the fact that some older people or people in rural areas were not going to be comfortable with these machines, but it was the opposite was true. We were able to bring those out, deploy them, and the results have been excellent. We had high turnout for the vote. The OAS mission and its observations also talked about political financing. We are working very intensely on that. It is true that in Paraguay, there is a high level of informality, especially in documentation. This is a major challenge. Nevertheless, we have made significant steps forward. The political class is also becoming accustomed to documenting everything, providing receipts, as it were, for the control and oversight of political financing. In Paraguay, we do need to make improvements in women's participation. The quotas established in political parties exceed 20%. The Liberal Party has recently announced that theirs will be 1-to-1, one man, 1-to-1 woman. But when the lists are ultimately published, that is not necessarily the case. And also voting with unblocked lists, these quotas. We have undertaken a process whereby we are seeking new solutions. And after the presidential elections, which will take place on April 30th, 2023, we will move forward. There is another component that is very true, and I fully agree with the findings, and it's about exit polls. We've heard those in exit polls using symbols or false names, or they'll throw out some figures there. And we need to be able to participate in all electoral processes in our countries, and our friends in other countries. We know that this cannot be admitted. In Peru, all of our countries, we are working on much more rigorous legislation. The Supreme Court of Electoral Justice is working to make sure that these perverse actions in terms of the exit polls trying to influence the vote be stopped. These electoral observation mission, which was spearheaded so well by Juan Pablo and was so well organized, I wanted to state, and we've already done so with the OAS, that the next EOM we would like to have for the presidential elections next April 30th. We're always pleased in Paraguay to be able to display how our system works. We are always open to suggestions, identifying both our strengths and weaknesses. I sincerely thank you for this opportunity. This is the first time we have had an in-person delivery of a report after such a long pandemic. I think this is the first time we're hearing a report in person. So, I would also like to express my thanks to Brazil and let you know that we will be following your upcoming elections very closely. There's always close coordination with Brazil's Superior Court of Electoral Justice. I would also just like to extend my thanks to all the countries of the region. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
I now recognize Bolivia. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to you. The delegation of Bolivia would like to thank the delivery of the report on the EOM deployed for the municipal elections held in Paraguay on October 10, 2021, as delivered by Juan Pablo Colasole. Nevertheless, we are still awaiting a report on some regional elections that were held in my country on March 7th, 2021, that should have been delivered today alongside the report on the municipal elections in Paraguay. When the General Secretariat asked that we agree to the presentation of the report in consultations with our foreign ministry, Madam Chair, we continued to wonder whether we could turn the page and forget about what DECO had done in the 2019 elections, April 19th of that year. Can we continue to move forward as if nothing had ever happened with the decision that they had been clean, fair elections in our country? And the response is no. We cannot leave that pending. And therefore, that is why we have not responded and we have not agreed to the presentation of this report. Those elections, as all elections in Bolivia, were fair and clean, but we still have this pending, and this may seem tiresome to many of my colleagues here, but Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary General Luis Almagro and the Assistant Secretary General, we've asked for the audit of this, which we have requested, and we wanted that to be binding on those elections. This was controversial action by the Secretary General of the OAS at that time. Thus far, that has not been done. And the Summit of the Americas, which is the highest political forum for the political leaders of the Americas, included a specific paragraph, paragraph 3, and in that paragraph, they instructed access to information be given on all processes that were completed. You cannot curtail access to information, like the elections. We all feel very proud of our elections. We can't access information after these reports are done. With all due respect and consideration, Madam Chair, we truly salute the EOMs. As a concept, we fully support them. But our case is not a trivial case. We are talking about the first time in nearly 75 years of the existence of the OAS, where a very specific event conducted by the Secretary General led to a constitutional crisis in a democracy. Bolivia will be celebrating 40 years of democracy next year, but it was interrupted one time in our country for the reasons that you are all aware of. This is something very serious. Madam Chair, we once again reiterate, my delegation reiterates once again that in compliance with the statements from the summit, in compliance with the Charter of the Organization of American States, that 12 different times we have made this similar request, and we hope it is honored. Thank you.
Your comments are noted. I offer the floor to the Secretary General.
The information from the electoral observation missions, their reports are made public. They're approximately 1,000 pages on irregularities in the comprehensive report of the elections from Bolivia from 2018. It talks about the problems with the transmission of the results, clandestine servers, and different remote entries into the system, access of unauthorized persons to the system, false information in an attempt to conceal servers, false information on the servers used in irregular reports of the vote tallying, and different materials, the way that metadata were stored, and the use of different types of software where changes were made thereto during the elections. They prove the transfer of images from the primary server to a different server. There were irregularities in terms of the voting records, problems with the databases, experimental servers, unauthorized and unexplainable entries into the system, interruption for 23 hours of the data system. On more than one occasion, the software was being changed during the process. There were a number of different records. And during the tallying, these are the irregularities that were found. 1,000 pages. Look at these permanent representatives and tell me whose responsibility is that? Unlike everything you've said, we asked Evo Morales to put an end to his term and that the results had to be respected. We have no responsibility. This is one of the most false things I've ever heard. I will not allow you to say this. Which of these irregularities would you say are the responsibility of the government? This is what you need to respond to. This is not contained in the Democratic Charter in any way. 1,000 pages of information made public. 5 different permanent councils have discussed this. We always come back to indicating all of the irregularities that were found. What you are saying is simply not the case. We were the only organization that asked Evo Morales to step down as he was voted out.
Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Chair. I am sorry to have caused so much anguish to the Secretary General. This is not personal. We have heard the same discourse, the same thing he just read, we heard during the Summit of the Americas. These are fallacies, these are lies. In a preliminary report that was published at 4 a.m. on Sunday, the 10th, in 2019, that stated that at 4 p.m. of that same day, a constitutional president was compelled to step down because the democracy was in peril. This is something that has been graphically displayed by the IACHR. People were killed, many people were injured, others were isolated and exiled. Never before in the history of this organization. The report of the Organization of American States in less than a day brought down a democracy. They brought down the institutions of democracy. And it's not about what is written in those reports, as the Secretary General has just done today and did so during the Summit of the Americas. He talks about the importance of this. If you're not afraid of anything, then let's have a commission of countries of the Organization of American States. Let's look at the reports of the independent experts who have presented each of the reports. Let's respond to the U.S. Department of State directly, that through a law is required to conduct an analysis and look at information on what happened during the Bolivian elections. This is not personal. This is not about you getting angry about this. It's about finding solutions. Let's create a commission comprised of different countries and members of DECO. This is something we will not be placated just because authorities become angry. There is blood behind this. We are going to continue to insist until we reach a final conclusion. And I repeat, never before. This organization is going to celebrate its 75th anniversary in the coming year. Never before have we seen anything happen like what happened in Bolivia. This warrants information. It warrants consequences. It's not a matter of getting angry about something, but of seeking answers. Thank you.
Floor to the Ambassador of Mexico and then the Secretary General, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have watched with concern how the Secretary General has absolutely lost control and lost his way in responding to the representative of a member state. We should be concerned about this type of conduct. This is a democratic and serene debate and has to be conducted in that way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Secretary General and then to Argentina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along the same lines as what was stated by the representative of Bolivia and the ambassador from Mexico, the report is public. Then just respond to the notes as the questions put forth by the representative of Bolivia on 12 occasions. If we need to put together a commission of countries, let's do so. What's clear is that there's a relationship in between the accusations of fraud and electoral process. These are not specific irregularities that are detected in all of the reports. There are always irregularities uncovered. However, when this takes on political magnitude such that an environment is created for a virtual coup, that's a problem. I don't want to get into a debate between one state, which I do not represent, and the OAS. But there's sadness and indignation where the government that was at the helm in Argentina at that time did not just collaborate with that coup, but provided material for the repression of a popular protest. As we were involved in all democratic processes in the region, I think it's important. I think it's so clear that there is political responsibility, not technical responsibility, in that report, in the coup in Bolivia, that it's not enough to simply say, well, I'm not pleased with what you said. Thank you. Chair, I do not seek to create difficulties, but I think I'm going to. I do not understand what's going on in the meeting, and your obligation is to keep us on track with today's order of business. The order of business stated that the report on the municipal elections in Paraguay. When on one of the items on the order of business is Bolivia, I don't know why Mr. Raimundi has had the chance to deliver his remarks on this. The rest of us cannot. Madam Chair, I am just calling on you to bring order to this meeting. So if we're just going to get into this thematic diaspora, I've got many things I'd like to say. I'm annoyed about some things about democracy on the continent, and maybe I want to speak about those. We could, if we all had I'm very angry about what's happening in Nicaragua, what's happening in Cuba and Venezuela. I continue to be really angry. So, Madam Chair, can I talk about this? Can I introduce those onto today's order of business? I would urge you to bring us back to the order of business, to stick to the discussion of the report on Paraguay. If not, we're opening Pandora's box, and we can all get on our ideological and philosophical soapboxes and talk about whatever it is we want. I think we should stick to talking about the report on Paraguay's elections and talk about that. That's what we should be discussing. That's what's relevant. We've gotten off track and we're not on our order of business. So I would ask the chair to bring us back to today's order of business.
Your comments are duly noted, as are the interventions of Bolivia, Mexico, and Argentina for the attention of the Secretariat. I now recognize Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I trust I'm being heard clearly.
You are, yes.
Thank you. I am online at this point and just joining from a device. First, this delegation would wish to express its appreciation to Mr. Juan Pablo Colasoli, the chief of this electoral observation mission, for the report presented, and also to thank the distinguished delegation of Paraguay for its response, which this delegation truly appreciated for its thoroughness in responding to the issues raised and in terms of presenting what appears to be the intent going forward to bring improvements. Chair, this delegation also notes the continued concern expressed by a delegation, a member state of the OAS, and also notes with some concern the high level of anxiety in the exchanges following that intervention. This delegation would not particularly want to comment on that at this point. But Madam Chair, oh, for heaven's sake.
Ambassador, we're hearing you. Your camera is off, but we're hearing you. If you could please proceed with your comments. Ambassador, if you're having difficulties, then I suggest that we hear concluding remarks from Mr. Colasole, and then if you're back on, we can hear you. Thank you. Mr. Colasole, if you have any concluding remarks for us, we'd be happy to offer you the floor. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to, in a few words, sum up what the report says in that to the electoral observation mission, there was full satisfaction, and it congratulated the Paraguayan and authorities and people for their election and for the electoral process which took place for the election of the local authorities. We underscore this, we highlighted this process, and they're in the process of simultaneously implementing several different processes in campaign financing and the electoral process, but also introducing a new modality that the president of the supreme organ, a new method that provides certainty and enables it to publicize the returns almost immediately. And there's been such an excellent effort made to overcome problems, issues that had surfaced in the past. And so if you look as a whole at these elections and the situation in Latin America, it's very comforting to see that in one of the countries of the region, the electoral process is conducted in an absolutely transparent way, in an absolutely secure way, in a way that abides by the will of the citizens. And this enriches us with all the options of how to proceed in casting votes with security or securely. So I would say the mission can ascertain with certainty that the highest standards were adhered to in this process. And so therefore, the mission hailed the Paraguayan people and the national agencies that are in charge of this process in the country. Madam Chair, I don't know if that's a succinct enough summary of the achievements that we detected in Paraguay.
The Chair suggests that the Permanent Council take note of the presentation of the final report of the OAS Electoral Observation Mission deployed for the municipal elections held in Paraguay on October 10, 2021, contained in document CP-Doc 5802/22. Congratulate the government and people of Paraguay on the aforementioned elections and thank the Chief of Mission and the members of his team for their work during this electoral observation mission. If there is no objection, it is so agreed. Our next agenda item is the presentation of the annual report of the Inter-American Telecommunication Commission to the 52nd regular session of the General Assembly, distributed as document CP-Doc 5769/22. On behalf of the Permanent Council, I extend a cordial welcome to the Executive Secretary of CTEL, who will present a summary of the report. Mr. Leon, welcome back to the OAS Permanent Council. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Ambassador Luann Gilchrist, Mr. Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the OAS, Ambassador Mendez, Assistant Executive Secretary, Secretary General, and other permanent members and observers. Thank you very much for inviting us to present this annual report of CTEL. There is a presentation that I believe is available. I would like to ask for the presentation to be put up on the screen. It's on second slide. Could you go straight to the second slide now? This is second slide. You can see the details of the activities that have been conducted by CTEL, the Inter-American Telecommunications Commission, and it shows the effort we're making to become more efficient in the use of ICT and telecommunications technology in the OAS member states. We're seeking somehow to have regulatory frameworks and policies to ensure a digital transformation throughout the Americas. I'm going to focus on the most important slides right now to make sure that I can have a clear message. Now slide 3. I want to tell you that despite the pandemic last year, we worked very hard at CTEL. We had held 52 meetings, and as a result, we had almost 1,300 people took part, and 1,100 documents were processed. Several different activities which show that we were active despite the pandemic. And as a result of this, we were able to approve initiatives for the expansions of telecommunications and ICT in rural areas, in unserved or underserved areas. And I say this because at the OAS General Assembly, there was a resolution approved 2966, and this was the result of very hard work in putting together documents with the participation of more than 25 countries in doing so. We also worked last year in finalizing a system of emergency telecom for Central America and in several Caribbean countries. We're making efforts to raise additional resources from donors to continue with this project in the rest of the countries of the Caribbean. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk to you about an important topic in 2022. As a result of the pandemic, it was necessary to group together several of the different world conferences that are held in the International Telecom Union of the UN. And so this is an opportunity to propose inter-American proposals to the ITU. This is our opportunity. We had 32 inter-American proposals before this body, and we defended them all at this World Assembly. This figure doesn't mean anything if we don't talk about the effectiveness of the proposals that we put forward. 86% of the proposals we put forward were accepted. And we worked also in preparing other agreements for the development conference this year. I just wanted to announce our progress in that regard. And then there was a high percent were approved of our proposals. Also, digital transformation. What's very important, 4,081 scholarships were granted to the benefit of students from 32 countries, member states, and we've pooled resources, and we have strategic partners and support from outside, and therefore more than 4,000 scholarships were successfully awarded. One of these courses has to do with leadership, women's leadership in the use of technology, important things like IPv6, Internet of Things, Internet governance, community networks, to provide telecom services to the most remote areas of the hemisphere, and many others as well. Next slide. We can also see the results we've achieved from this 2030 Alliance, the ICT Alliance for the Americas. Many of you have heard about this. With one of our partners that we signed up for this partnership, Millicom. It's a process called Conectate Seguro to train children and parents, and more than 340,000 beneficiaries for the training of 231,000 plus, almost 232,000 children and adolescents, 8,444, and public schools were connected, and more than 2,853 connected educational institutions. And there were additional 104 institutions. Another program is Pro Futuro. It's Telefónica Foundation and La Caixa are partners there that offers training on innovation and education technologies for teachers, paying special attention to 92 schools in Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Guyana, and St. Lucia. And in addition to handing over computers to both teachers and students, we've been successful at, in 2021, 6,537 teachers have enrolled in courses, and 1,452 teachers have completed it in at least 10 hours of training. This is very important to be able to meet our goals. And that's a problem in public schools. We can't get anywhere because there has to be knowledge as well as the equipment. And this is a significant number that we've advanced with here. Also, satellite access is important to the sites that do have connectivity, and several of these are in the Viasat is the partner in South America, and the Caribbean is where we're working with this connection. There's limited permitting, and so we tried to make, in 2 years we're trying to increase that. Another initiative which continued and did not stop was between Telefonica and Facebook, a partnership, Internet for All in Peru. And we've been, through this program, almost 3 million Peruvians in rural areas have been connected in the most remote areas, far-flung areas of Peru. This makes it possible for this same project can be replicated in other countries of the Americas. With AT&T, we've also a school program, more than 60,000 schools were connected, and a total of 9,410 is what we plan to have connected through this program. And at the end, and then this 2030 ICT Alliance for the Americas, we have ISOC. We had 12,000 scholarships were given through these programs that I have up here. Also, at the general, through Resolution 2966, you approved initiatives to expand telecommunications information and communication technology in rural, unserved areas. For implementation in Ecuador, we were dealing with it. When we're focusing on the Dominican Republic and others, other countries that have asked for this support to be able to reach these places so that there's digital equity, as we call it, and so that all sorts of internet and other telecom services reach it. I'd like to wrap up my presentation referring to 3 documents which will be presented to you to bring before the OAS General Assembly. The first one is draft resolution, priority role of the Organization of American States in the development of telecommunications, information, and technologies through CETEL. As you've seen, we've done this in the past. The other 2 draft resolutions are just came out this year as a result of the assembly, and they're to go on for 4 years. And this is modifications to the CETEL statute for approval at the OAS General Assembly. This will help us. With these approval of these statutes, it will be very helpful to us, and also modifications to the CETEL rules and regulations to inform the OAS General Assembly. This is going to be submitted by Colombia, who became the chair of the committee, and 5 countries are part of this who are going to jointly sponsor these documents. If there's any other country that's interested in becoming co-sponsoring this, then you can join. And so thank you very much for the time, and I am willing and able to answer any question you may have. Thank you very much.
I offer the floor to delegations that wish to refer to the 2021 report of the CETEL. And I draw your attention to the fact that out of respect for all of you, my colleagues, I will either refer to you by your title and name or by the name of your country. Respect is due. Thank you. And now recognize El Salvador.
Muchas gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That my delegation thanks Mr. Carleon, the Executive Secretary of CETEL, for the presentation on the 2021 report. We take note. El Salvador has made a contribution to CETEL to improve the development of telecommunications and the use of the radioelectric spectrum and the creation of a enabling climate for ICT in light of the pandemic. A week ago, we found us here in this council talking about seeing how available technology and the digital gap, closing it, can help us to include women and young people and people in vulnerability to consolidate and to bring about sustainable development. In this context, Madam Chair, this is even more consequential, the work of CETEL, because of the role that information and communication technology and telecom has in sustainable development and consolidation of democracy. El Salvador is fostering public policies in the short, medium, and long term to promote the building of a knowledge-based society with a 2020 digital agenda, 2020-2030, and then we are committed to bring about this digital transformation in our region. For the second period, we're part of the proposing committee through the participation through our electricity office of the superintendent. We reiterate the trust you have showed, the confidence in our country, and CETEL in the interest of obtaining positive results to close the digital gap. Thank you.
Floor to Colombia.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I would like firstly to thank Mr. Oscar Leon, Executive Secretary of the Inter-American Telecom Commission, CETEL, for the presentation of the report to this permanent council and everything he's done thus far. Colombia, as the chair of CETEL, reiterated its commitment to continue to work jointly with the member states to promote harmonization and coordination of telecom throughout the region as a fundamental matter to achieve economic and social development with equity in the hemisphere. Thus, on this note, I'd like to underscore CETEL's work in in the agreements it's helped to achieve with regard to telecom and the use of the radio electric spectrum to favor investments in ICT in the region. I also want to hail the achievements with regard to the 2030 ICT Alliance with bringing together the private and public sectors with regard to the use of technology to close the digital gap and to foster the participation of women. I also like to emphasize the importance of the progress made with regard to expansion of telecom in rural areas that are unserved or underserved. In the view of Colombia, all actions aimed at closing the gap of access and building technology infrastructure are of the utmost importance for the development of the region. Lastly, I would like to thank all the work of all the members of CITEL. We hope that all actions taken favor implementation of new strategies to make it possible to achieve our goals on this subject matter. Madam Chair, Colombia has sponsored this resolution and sent it out to all the member states on the 24th of August. The proposal, as I said, we hope to set into the Permanent Council by the 9th. And so we are awaiting any comments on our proposed text that any country may have so we can continue with the negotiations. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The delegation of Chile would like to express its gratitude for the report 2021 of the Inter-American Telecommunications Commission, which reflects the importance of the strengthening CITEL within the OAS and the consequence it has on the states. That is what ICT and telecommunication has, and the use of the radio electric spectrum and the creation of an enabling climate for information and communication technologies to flourish. I would like to congratulate CITEL for bringing this into the political arena, because we have to remember in 2021 there was an approval of the resolution on the priority role and of development of ICT and telecommunications through CITEL. Likewise, we would like to call on CITEL because it's the single a body that represents our hemisphere in the International Telecommunications Union negotiations. Chile views that it's essential to develop telecommunications and ICT in as much as that it's the fundamental tool for the progress of the region. And so that's why we're grateful for, and we appreciate any offers of any training that CITEL can provide with regard to the internet ecosystem, that women and children in science, and those who are not connected, and digital literacy to close the digital gap, among other things. Among these initiatives, also we hail the possibility to take part in by CITEL in the development of the countries. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Have the floor.
Embajadora, si nos escucha, ¿se puede encender su cámara y micrófono?
Ambassador, can you turn your camera and your microphone on? Says the sound technician to the Ambassador of Mexico. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mexico urges there to be partnership with regard to telecommunication and ICT as strategies for sustainable development and resilience and economic recovery of the region, particularly in the complex context that we're facing with the health crisis and the economic and energy crisis globally. We have listened closely to the annual report of CITEL, and we reiterate its invaluable, dynamic, and efficient efforts made on behalf of the country, such as development of infrastructure in telecom and the radioelectric spectrum and ICTs. We congratulate Oscar Leon, the executive secretary of this commission, and to his valuable team. Mexico conducts several actions in this regard and supports with necessary resources for operations for the infrastructure, and it urges there to be a regional effort in this area of telecom and ICT. Mexico is a member of the direct permanent CITEL committee, executive committee for 2026, and chairs the permanent consultative committee on radio communications, as well as two of its working groups. With chairs in 2021, we hosted the 35th meeting of the committee, which was held virtually from the 8th to 12th of November, and we hosted a committee meeting which was held in April of 2022. So we confirm our commitment to the roadmap defined by the Commission, so that by 2023 we can achieve the goals consistent with the Sustainable Development Goals and consistent with the priorities established by the social policies of Mexico's government, to open up the internet to the entire country, to be able to share among the disadvantaged and others. Since the last General Assembly of the OAS, Mexico has co-sponsored the resolution that was approved with regard to the priority role of the OAS in the development of telecommunication and ICT through CITEL, and underscores the importance of bringing connectivity and access of broadband to everywhere. And we underscore this initiative. In 2021, Mexico has dealt with initiatives for rural area connectivity and to underserved or unserved areas. My country is happy about the gender-based approach that has been used to try to pluralize the training of communities in rural areas and remote areas, to empower women through the use of ICT. The women's leadership courses and the relationship between SIM and the ICT Alliance 2030. So there's been this substantially contributes to the development of countries, and it's strategic. And so Mexico has seconded associate personnel to CITEL to engage in cooperation with this commission for the purpose to eliminate this or close the digital gap throughout the Americas. We will continue to work actively so that our authorities and CITEL present this at the upcoming General Assembly.
To the Executive Secretary of CITEL for closing remarks.
Gracias, señor presidente. Agradecemos.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to thank you all for your support. It was a little bit complicated in 7 minutes to sum up what we've been doing over the year, but we've been working very hard to meet all of the objectives of digital equity. We've been working with your technology ministries and the heads of institutions. They've been very active within CITEL. Very soon we will be working together at the high-level conference that will take place at the end of this month, the plenipotentiary. Many of your countries have put forward candidates for the upcoming elections. We will be supporting that process. That will happen very soon, so thank you very much.
Secretary of CITEL for his presentation, and through him congratulate the members of the Commission and the entire team at the Secretariat of CITEL for the results achieved in 2021. That said, the Chair suggests that the Permanent Council take note of the presentation of the 2021 Annual Report of the Inter-American Telecommunication Commission by its Executive Secretary, as well as of the comments expressed by the delegations, which will be transmitted to the General Assembly at its 52nd regular session. There being no objections, it is so agreed. Agreed. The next agenda item is the presentation of the annual report of the Inter-American Commission of Women to the 52nd regular session of the General Assembly, distributed as document CP Doc 5800/22. In that regard, I extend a cordial welcome to Ms. Alejandra Mora Mora, Executive Secretary of the Commission, who will present a summary of the report. Executive Secretary Mora Mora, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Gilchrist, I would like to extend my greetings to the Secretary General, the Assistant Secretary General. Thank you very much for this opportunity. If you'll allow me, I would like to extend greetings and thanks for the opportunity to present on behalf of the SIM. This has been an intensive year. Last year, when we began our work on the report, we knew we had to include all of the implications of COVID and the impact on gender inequality, which is one of the deepest inequalities that exists in our region. I want to focus on that today because what we've seen is the movement from talk to actions is too slow in terms of meeting the urgent needs of women. And that's why we have to put this at the top of our agendas again. The reports we heard today, for example, in the case of Paraguay about electoral governance, local elections, and women's participation, I think is an example of what I'm talking about. The data continue to be alarming. The ILO has indicated that while 58% of employment has been recovered for women, in the case of men, it's been 77%. That's nearly a 20% difference. And of course, in the case of women, it's mostly caregiving work. There's another piece of data that I think is truly alarming that I'd like to share with you. That is 3 out of every 10 women in the region do not have their own income. In some countries, it is nearly 4 out of every 10 women who do not have their own income. We just saw a report from the UN on the SDGs where they talk about inequality. What's clear is that not one single one of us lives in a country where there is gender equality. This, therefore, requires a number of actions, and I wanted to focus on a challenge that is dragging us down. I wanted to raise the profile on this. It's about gender awareness. The world continues to not consider women leaders or economic agents in their own lives. This leads to inequality, but the UNDP report on perceptions affirms that 50% of the population believes that men are better leaders. And 40% of the population in the region believes that men are the more suitable people to spearhead businesses. The IDB issued a recent report where they talk about women's participation in businesses and leadership roles continues to decline. So we have to look at how can we evaluate women's contributions as more than 50% of the population. How can we look at women as symbols of leadership, guarantee women's participation in decision-making spaces, and ensure that results are comprehensive in decision-making when women are at the table, especially when gender is at play. There's a lot of research on this. How can we counter the prejudices that we've seen? As the CIM, we have been working on a number of different areas that are part of the report. And so we have to look at the leadership of women to help women move forward, but there has to be a solid architecture with cross-sector partnerships that include governance and different national areas. There have to be innovative lines, for example, in public services, foreign ministries, equality in planning, etc. We have concluded with a plan for parity within the OAS based on the indications received by the PC in order to ensure this parity within the OAS. In terms of political rights, we have been supporting women in decision-making positions and strategic positions so that they can have an influence in the different branches of government. And we have also incorporated campaign financing, which is generally concentrated in the masculine elite. We have tried to ensure that more women, above all in local governments where the data are clear that they lack a presence. In terms of the task force, we have been trying to show evidence of women's leadership in terms of economic rights. We've seen that women are the engine of innovative, strong economies, especially in terms of caregiving, where women represent the largest section of the workforce. This is often unpaid work and therefore requires co-responsibility. In terms of security crisis, we have created a framework of women, peace, and security, a reconceptualization of safety, security, and women's resistance and resilience as the basis for peace agreements. And on September 13th, we will be sharing that. The invitation has already been extended. We are also trying to strengthen the implementation of the Belém do Pará Convention. We've issued recommendations, technical recommendations on cyber violence, cyber harassment, consent in cases of sexual violence in terms of the campaign No Means No, as well as a hemispheric report on child marriage. The CIM took part with more than 30 delegations and 200 individuals from civil society and other areas of the state. This led to a declaration that puts new topics on the gender agenda, for example, building bridges, parity in democracies, and leadership and awareness. This includes feminist movements and movements of women in the public and private sectors. A strategic plan for the next 5 years of the CIM was adopted. We included some of the topics on the international agenda: climate change, sexual and reproductive health, mental health, and digital transformation. This is a repertoire of actions for states to improve capabilities and competencies. And we conclude with a strategy for a comprehensive strategy for involvement of the Caribbean. This was designed based on the voices of women from the Caribbean. And we came up with the new steering committee for the coming years. We wanted the CIM to have more countries in the region seeking some of the positions available, and this was put to a vote for the first time in the past 20 years. The vote was done in a hybrid manner. This shows some of the complexities of virtual hybrid work. The result was Panama. It holds the chair, Chile, St. Lucia, and El Salvador, vice chairs, Antigua, Barbuda, Canada, Honduras, Uruguay, round out the committee. In the pre-COVID world was not protagonized by women, but the post-COVID world will be. We have to have more agreements, less resistance, more partnerships. We believe there's a roadmap for recovering the language agreed by the states and the progressive nature of women's rights to take on the commitment to have cultural shifts to fight violence and discrimination, to revalue women's leadership and to ensure democracy. And caregiving should be the right in communities that so need that, and as decent work for those who give it, as part of a state of well-being that is part of the overall overarching healthcare system, and how this is a requirement for hemispheric security. I would state that in the upcoming General Assembly, there should be a space to share the hopes of those who are part of the same, and that this be at the top of the agenda. That is the matters of violence and discrimination, so that there can be transformative policies that will change the agenda, which is what we are all seeking at the end of the day. Thank you very much. And we have the report and the PowerPoint, which we will share with you so that you can have them available on your own computers.
The floor is now open to delegations who wish to speak on this agenda item. Your cooperation is much appreciated in adhering to the 5-minute time limit. I now recognize Peru. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have witnessed the intensive work done by the CIM as a whole, especially the leadership of its secretary, Ms. Alejandra Mora Morda. The CIM, over decades, has played an important role in promoting political and civil rights for women in the region and internationally. In this report, the countries of the region have benefited from the CIM's work through the Inter-American Model Laws, for example, the one on caregiving, which experienced its own internal process in Peru, and we're hoping that it will soon become law. We also wanted to highlight the ongoing support for strengthening of women's capacity in politics. In Peru, we've done this, and I wanted to thank you, Ms. Mora Morda, and your entire team. I also wanted to highlight some of the innovative contributions that the CIM has made that were highlighted in the report in the gender equality agenda. That is the defense of parity, women's leadership, economic rights, and caregiving, as well as violence. We also need to point out the leadership of the Dominican Republic and Panama as chair, as previous chair and current chair. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Muchas gracias, señora.
Thank you, Chair. My delegation would like to commend Dr. Alejandra Mora Morda, Executive Secretary of the CIM, for the presentation of this annual report during this Permanent Council meeting. We take due note of it. El Salvador recognizes the importance of the CIM's work to push for equal rights between men and women, as well as its ongoing work even within the context of the pandemic to ensure that girls, teens, and women are able to exercise their rights. The CIM's work has shown many of the challenges out there and does advocacy work to raise awareness about the situation of women during the pandemic, their economic rights, peace, security, which are key areas for a full, equal life. The mandates from the most recent assembly and the strategic plan from 2022-2026 create a roadmap for the actions and looking at how women's political rights for democratic governance are important, economic rights, climate change, and women's leadership in climate management and disaster management. El Salvador, as one of the vice chairs, will support the work of the CIM so that it can meet some of the objectives it's put forward for itself. We have the commitment to push forward tangible actions to ensure fundamental rights for women and girls through updating our own legislation, for example, the reform on the institutions in El Salvador that seeks to strengthen our local institution as far as it is concerned, providing comprehensive programs. We insist that its short, medium, and long-term plans will lead to greater equality. We see the importance of local organizations to prevent discrimination and to ensure substantive equality and women's rights to live a life free from violence. El Salvador will always continue to work on institutionalizing a gender approach within the OAS. We see that women have 75% of representation in the organization recently and are taking leadership positions. But we can always improve. Along these lines, we have to remain committed to reaching the objectives of the resolution of women's participation in the OAS, which was adopted by the Permanent Council in March of 2020. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Secretary General Almagro, esteemed colleagues. This is a very special day, September 7th. Here we signed the Rio Carter agreement. Many things have transpired over those 110 years. We've seen many representatives present their credentials, but very few have been women. But now there are only 8 permanent representatives who are women before the OAS. And today we are losing one of those dear friends. We've seen many situations transpire here, but for the first time in 3 years, this is the first time I have seen a chair addressed the way you were today. So I would like to express my solidarity, the delegation of Panama. I'd like to thank the Executive Secretary of the CIMS for her report. We take due note of it, and we recognize once again the valuable work of the team of the CIM. Despite the fact that it is a small team, through their hard and ongoing work, they have contributed in an incalculable way to pushing forward the women's agenda in the region. We also recognize what's in the report that was presented here that displays the commitment of the CIM team to achieve cross-cutting rights for women in all the pillars of this organization. We reiterate that the gender approach should not be siloed into the human rights pillar. It must be included in the pillar of democracy strengthening, integral development, and others. We will not achieve any of these without women's effective participation and the inclusion of a differentiated approach that allows us to reflect the challenges faced by half of the population, in other words, women. In order to reach this yearned for gender parity, it is important to note that there is still a long road ahead. The member states must address the current challenges that indisputably are part of the landscape of this analysis. The short, medium, and long-term objectives must be met so that we are able to help women in all of their diversity look at the different realities in each of the member states. And if we look at the upcoming General Assembly, we urge the member states to work together to make the most of that opportunity and do what's necessary to reinforce our commitment as a region and to devise concrete solutions. As we know, the pandemic led to serious setbacks in terms of the achievements in terms of gender equality, and this has broadened rather than narrowed the gender gap. This is the time to highlight this idea of building bridges, and which was adopted in the most recent conference of the CIM, where Panama was the host country. There we committed to strengthening the CIM as a facilitator of opportunities and dialogues. We also recognize that as a region, we share challenges, all of which have been reflected in this declaration and in the new strategic plan of the Commission, with the purpose of being able to move forward to sustainable solutions to the benefit of American women and all of their diversity, bearing in mind that the roadmap for all countries must adjust to their own needs and characteristics so that these are effective. Lastly, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to once again thank all of the delegations for their support for Panama as a chair of the CIM. By acclamation, our Panamanian minister was elected chair. This will help us to move forward as a region to achieve this yearned for a parity. Without parity, there is no peace.
Morning to esteemed Secretary General and our Assistant Secretary General and members of the head table, dear colleagues. I take the floor to greet Madam Executive Secretary Mora Mora on behalf of the CARICOM Caucus of Ambassadors and myself as a point person. I want to also express thanks to the Caribbean specialist for her advocacy and for continuing to keep us on task, and that's Ms. Yasmin Solith Odlum. The Executive Secretary did mention that there is now a strategic plan for meaningful engagement with the Caribbean, and that took a lot of doing, a lot of meetings with all various point persons in the islands, and we're very happy that that has come to fruition. Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary, for bringing that to light today, and thank you for the report, the very detailed report, which will be presented to the General Assembly. I just want to also say that we, as the CARICOM Caucus, commit ourselves to the work of CIM and the women of the region, and while I would no longer be that point person, it will be in the capable hands of another female ambassador, and I thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Grenada. I now offer the floor to Chile.
Thank you, Chair. First, we would like to thank the SIM for its presentation of this annual report by the Executive Secretary Alejandra Mora Mora about the activities through 2021, a year in which the pandemic was changing things in the world and was hitting women particularly hard. The agenda to deal with the results of the 2020 agenda. The example of the pandemic, its impacts, is eloquent for the perspective.
Gracias a los técnicos. No puedo.
Thank you to the technicians. I cannot let something pass. Just a few moments ago, we had an exchange of opinions as part of the statutory rules of this body. What I stated about the divergence from the order of business were simply about that particular point of order. In no way whatsoever was my intention to insult the chair in any way, shape, or form. This was not a criticism. Had that been my intention, I would have said so. This was very different from that. I fully respect the chair. I simply wanted to point out that we were derailing a little bit in a direction that I did not think would be helpful. So I would like you to take back that assertion, because I had no intention of criticizing the chair. If that's the way you heard it, then I would be very happy to apologize. However, when we were talking about the order of business, we should stick to our order of business and not in any way diverge from that. So thank you, Madam Chair, for that opportunity. Thank you, Chair. Like in 2020, the SIN had an agenda that was based on the problems of the pandemic, when the 4 pillars of the work of the organization. The example of the pandemic, its impact and policies to tackle it were eloquent to look at respect for gender, and this is part of all public policy and all actions of the OAS. We also look with satisfaction at the high level of a completion of its objectives. The government of Chile and the work in its commission is valuable. And part of this was its election as a vice chair. We have Antonia Reyana, who is part of the 9th commission of the SIM in the areas that are relative to the SIM, the protection of human rights, and these will be submitted to the next General Assembly. I also wanted to date the first is the General Assembly Together Against Inequality and Discrimination. These two phenomena, discrimination, are unfortunately deep-rooted in our region and are deeply expressed, and affect women and girls in our region and all of their diversity. It is essential that we can move forward with specific commitments to confront this inequality and discrimination. To wrap up, Madam Chair, I wanted to say that this inequality and expression that affects women in a dimension that is political leadership. These policies in both political spaces and also in private spaces is qualitative, and there should be parity with men. I want to say that half of the population still believes that men are better leaders. This phenomenon has an impact on women leaders as well as young girls and adolescents who seek to become political leaders. In Argentina, when we saw the attempted assassination of the vice president is part of political violence, and we must act. Thank you very much.
For the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States commends Secretary Mora for her informative presentation today and for her important work. We also take this opportunity to thank Panama for hosting the Assembly of Delegates in May, and also to congratulate those who were elected to the SIMS Executive Committee. The United States supports the SIMS efforts to carry out its mission to shape the public policy agenda for the full participation of women in our societies and to eliminate gender-based discrimination and violence across the region. We were pleased to join the Declaration of Panama, which acknowledges that gender equality and the empowerment of women in all their diversity are key to women's effective exercise of human rights and their contributions as active agents of democracy and development in their societies. The Declaration takes note of the fact that significant inequalities remain between different groups of women. This requires an intersectional approach, one that accounts for the interconnection of multiple forms of discrimination, exclusion, and inequality. The United States is committed to advancing these efforts through our first ever national gender strategy launched last year, the creation of a White House Gender Policy Council, and our National Action Plan on Gender-Based Violence. We welcome the opportunity to work with other OAS member states in addressing gender-based violence, promoting women, peace, and security, protecting women, human rights defenders and journalists, and advancing women's economic empowerment. We also look forward to continuing to work with the SIM on these and other issues impacting women and girls in the hemisphere. Thank you.
Thank you, United States. I now offer the floor to the Ambassador of Costa Rica.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Greetings to you, distinguished ambassadors, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, and particularly Alejandra Mora, the Executive Secretary to the Inter-American Commission of Women, for the presentation of her annual report. We are grateful for the work of SIM during 2021, where the leadership of Alejandra has been fundamental. Despite the years of struggle for recognition, protection, and promotion of the human rights of women in all of their diversity, there still persists the need to duplicate efforts to make greater progress in closing the gap. Now, with regard to the World Economic Forum, it was said that there is not a recovery from the pandemic. As the Executive Secretary said, the figures are not encouraging. According to a worldwide study, we need another 132 years to close the gender gap totally. The analysis shows that the move towards closing the gender gap has been stagnated in 100 and some odd countries. 30 had an advance of only 1%, and 60 some had very little progress. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we're third in all the regions. Our region has overcome 62% of its gender gap. Based on this progress, it's predicted that the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean will close the gap in 67 years at this pace. However, in the region, from 2021 2022, only 22 of the 22 countries, there was a small improvement. It was only 1% improvement. And the countries analyzed that presented the most the areas was in health and education, where the gender gap has been reduced by 97 and 99% respectively. The political capacity and economic area continue to be the spaces where women are most discriminated against. In this context, the work done by the SIM are absolutely essential. We underscore among many of the initiatives and programs the courses for women electoral candidates. One of these programs was held in November 22nd last year in Costa Rica, and on the December 3rd last year, and the participatory gender assessments to incorporate a gender perspective in all policies and at all levels and at all stages. And of course, we can't fail to talk about the CARE initiative, which was launched last March. We are aware that we cannot expect parity in every area right away, specifically in economic and areas where there's abysmal differences. Likewise, we thank SIM for the follow-up and the implementation of the human rights of women promotion program and gender equality program, for providing technical assistance and for introducing a gender approach and a diversity in all the areas of the Organization of American States, and also the recommendations of MESECVI with regard to violence and political harassment. Costa Rica takes advantage of this opportunity to reiterate its commitment to the rights of women and all of their diversity. Today we must fight harder to apply comprehensive measures that are aimed at eliminating the structural causes of violence against women and confront the obvious gaps, blatant gaps between men and women, which still ail our region. By strengthening SIM and MESECVI are absolutely essential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Costa Rica. I now offer the floor to Mexico. Mexico, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Women are aware and consciously mistreated. The problem lies in the lack of conscience and with which these offenses are committed. So I'm very pleased that there's been a reconsideration by a permanent representative of Uruguay, that I join in Panama with regard to the signing of the treaties. Madam Chair, Mexico is grateful for the presentation of this report, which contains the most important actions taken by the Inter-American Commission of Women. In the framework of the feminist foreign policy of Mexico, SIM represents one of the spaces for the advancement of the human rights of women, young women, young girls and girls in all of their diversity. My country is staunchly committed to strengthening these areas. SIM has contributed to awareness and a gender focus and shedding light on the plight of women in different areas of public and private life. In the context of the health emergency, the contributions of SIM have helped to understand better the differentiated impact on women and young girls and the worsening of their condition of vulnerability. In the period of this report several different issues like accelerators of the agenda for gender equality, parity, leadership of women, economic rights, care. And likewise, the report talks of the different areas at the OAS where you're trying to mainstream a gender-based approach. Since 2021, SIM has worked on a gender parity plan